going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of D-Lin Reacts. I'm your host, Mr. D-Lin, and we back up in here with another banger, the resurrection of Mary. If y'all ain't never heard of the resurrection of Mary, you in for a treat this time. I'll give y'all a little rundown about it, but I don't want to spoil. I'm trying to get my camera right. I don't want to spoil the thing for y'all. If y'all never heard of Resurrection Mary, this story is gonna trip you out, but I can give y'all a little background. In Chicago's paranormal history, few legends are well known as the Resurrection Mary. The story dates back to the 1930s, centers around a young blonde woman dressed in white who has said to haunt Archer Avenue near Resurrection Cemetery in Justice, Illinois. According to the legend, Mary was a young woman who went dancing one night at a ballroom. Most accounts say it was the old Willowbrook ballroom. After an argument with her date, she decided to walk home. Tragically, she was struck and killed by a car on Archer Avenue, just outside Resurrection Cemetery. Since then, countless drivers have reported picking up a mysterious young woman in a white dress alongside the road. She usually asks to be taken home, but when the car approaches the cemetery gates, she vanishes into thin air. So we're gonna get into this, man. I just wanted to give y'all a little background so y'all know what's going on, but this should be a good one. Let's get into it.
It's late on a moonless night. You're on a dark, lonely road. The shadows seem to reach for you. The sudden rustle of leaves makes you jump. Your heart beats faster and faster. You assume it's your imagination. Unless you're on the road to Resurrection Cemetery, just southwest of Chicago.
The 1930s in Chicago were coming to an end as Jerry Paulus was out with friends at the Liberty Grove Ballroom. But Jerry's attention wasn't with his friends. It was instead focused on the beautiful young woman standing on the far side of the dance hall, her blonde hair resting on her shoulders with curls either side. Her white dress almost seemed to glow in the dim light of the room. Jerry noticed as the band played that she didn't appear to be with anyone, simply standing alone, watching everyone else.
Just real quick, just so y'all know, the fellas that watch my page, man, I'm gonna tell you something, man. Them pretty blonde haired women, they trouble. I'm telling you, they like little venomous snakes, man. They trouble. I'm just telling you, the pretty blonde haired women and the blue eyes, they look drop dead gorgeous, but they are trouble. I advise you to go the other way. Just my opinion.
Else have fun. So Jerry, a man who was apparently something of a self-professed ladies' man, decided to approach her. The woman agreed to dance, but barely said anything as she did. Still, something about her captivated Jerry, who didn't return to his friends at all that night. Instead, he danced to every song with the woman who he came to know as Mary. She did tell him that she lived on the south side of town, but was strangely very coy about revealing anything else about herself. But there was something that Jerry noticed about her. She was cold. Very cold. Not in the sense that she appeared to be shivering or anything, but as their hands touched.
So let me get this straight. He met a blonde-haired woman in the ballroom who had on a white dress. He danced with her a few times now on the ballroom floor. They left together, and she's in the passenger seat. That's what I'm just making sure I'm following what's going on. Now, this woman disappeared out the front seat.
Touched her skin, felt icy cold. Still, the stilted conversation and slightly odd behaviour of Mary did nothing to dissuade Jerry. As the band played their last number, Jerry offered to give Mary a lift home, to which she agreed. They walked along the street towards Jerry's car, and Mary asked him to take her down Archer Avenue, a long stretch of road that happens to run past Chicago's Resurrection Cemetery. But Mary had already told him where she lived, which was an address in South Damon. Jerry questioned this, but Mary was insistent that she wanted to go to Archer Avenue, so Jerry began to drive that way. Again, Mary barely said a word as the pair travelled down the at the time quiet area of the city. Jerry's attempts at conversation went nowhere, until Mary suddenly told him to stop the car. Jerry was confused but pulled over anyway, and Mary started telling him that she needed to get out. Jerry was perplexed. What had he done to upset her so badly that she was happy to just jump out, miles from her home in the middle of the night? Mary told Jerry to stay where he was, that he shouldn't follow. Jerry, who had jumped out to open Mary's door, stood in front of his car as the girl slowly began to walk through the entrance to the cemetery, before vanishing into nothingness before his very eyes.
So, so you had a whole date with a ghost, danced with her, drank with her. You was on your way home, and right before she had sex, she actually ghosted you for real, for real. Man, you can't make this up, man. Like, she literally ghosted him for real. Like, wow, you can't make this up.
Jerry went home alone that night.
I'm sure.
Obviously, he didn't get much sleep. He was tossing and turning, trying to make sense of what he had just seen.
Nah, he tossed and turned because Jerry got a hard on, man. Now that I didn't spend my money on these drinks, and Jerry got a hard on.
When the sun came up the following morning, Jerry decided that he needed answers. So he headed to the address that Mary had originally given him. There, an older woman answered the door. Jerry asked her if a woman named Mary lived there, but she said she didn't. As the woman was about to close the door, he noticed a photograph in her living room. There, in the frame, was Mary. The man questioned this, and the woman became upset about his insistence. She finally told him that Mary was her daughter, but it can't have been her that he met last night. She had died years before. Jerry had just met one of Chicago's most famous residents, the vanishing hitchhiker that would go on to be known as Resurrection Mary. Welcome to the tape library. We've got a good old-fashioned spooky one tonight that was requested by...
Before we continue, man, make sure y'all hit that bell notification. Make sure y'all subscribe so whenever I drop some more of these reaction videos, y'all can be the first one to be notified to lock in with me.
A few of you. Tonight we're getting into the story of Resurrection Mary, either one of the most widely reported ghosts spotted in all of America, or simply just a creepy Chicago urban legend. The story of Jerry Paulus was made famous in the 90s by Unsolved Mysteries, but we're going to be getting into as many of the recorded sightings of Mary as we can, along with discussing the various theories about who this ghostly woman could be. I wouldn't have been able to put this together without the book The Ghosts of Chicago by local historian and tour guide Adam Selzer, who did a great job collecting these accounts together.
All my Chicago people, man, lock in. Let me know in the comments. All my people from up north, man. All my people from the Midwest. Lock in, man. Let me know if y'all heard of the resurrection of Mary. Let me know if y'all experienced her. Let me know anything other than this information that we getting from this video that we might not know about. Put it in the comments and let me know.
Some are simply brief sightings, others are much more detailed accounts of what happened. But what is so interesting about this tale compared to your average urban legend is just how many of the stories appear to come from first-hand accounts, rather than a friend of a friend who spotted something unexplained. So let's get into it, shall we? Get yourself a drink, dim the lights and get comfortable. It's time to meet Chicago's most famous ghost. This is the story of Resurrection Mary. Before Mary became Mary, there was another reported woman in white who would be spotted along Archer Avenue at St. James of the Sag Cemetery, the largest active cemetery of the time back in 1897. A church fair was taking place in a large dance hall at the base of a hill near the police station, in the area known as the Sag Valley. Two musicians from Chicago, Professor William Looney and John Kelly, were hired to perform that day. However, it was a long trip back home for both men, so they decided to spend the night and set up cots on the upper floor of the dance hall. They were awoken around 1 o'clock in the morning by an unexpected sound. Horses galloping and the rattle of a carriage passing by the building. They rushed to the window and could see nothing, the moonlight leaving most of the graveyard around them brightly lit, revealing an empty road in front of them. Yet they could still hear the sound of the horses' hooves galloping along the road, growing closer and closer as it did, but there was nothing there. Until the sound went past the dance hall and disappeared off into the distance. There was a moment of silence as the two men retreated from the window, obviously a little confused by what they had just experienced. But before they could get comfortable in their cots, the sound suddenly returned. Once again the two men rushed to the window, and yet again they saw no horses. But this time, they did see a woman, standing in the centre of the road, dressed in white. She appeared to be floating around, her legs not moving as she glided gracefully.
See, look here. Real quick, man. Look here. If I see a woman who literally floating around in the sky, I'm not going to be around to figure out why. I wouldn't be able to tell you. I wouldn't be able to tell you nothing, because if the police come and ask me any questions, sir, I do not know. I was up out of there. As soon as I seen her levitate, no need to congregate. For real, I'm gone, y'all. But we gonna get back into it. I just wanted to man, that is wild.
Down the road, in one major difference from later reports of a ghostly woman on Archer Avenue. This woman had dark black hair rather than blonde. The Chicago Tribune wrote a story about the incident and described her in incredible fashion as having deep melancholy reflected from sepulchral eyes, which rolled about with that hollow intensity indicative of some soul-eating despair. But eventually, the sound of the horses did appear to have a source. The men claimed to suddenly see a group of white horses running along with light shining from their foreheads, pulling behind them a dark carriage that did not appear to have a driver. As it passed by the woman, she raised her arms and held out her palms. She had been progressively moving closer and closer to the two men during this whole period, and was now no more than 20 feet away, when she suddenly just vanished into the ground, along with the horse and carriage, leaving the men sitting there in stunned silence. As Selzer points out in his book, the unfortunately named Mr. Looney was quoted as saying, "I am willing to make affidavit to the truth of this story, and I will go further and say I am willing to tell the priest it is the truth." Marshal Ed Cohen of the police was quoted as saying, "Both Kelly and Looney are fine young men, and I have no reason to disbelieve."
Like no cap, that do kind of sound weird, man. Like, I ain't trying to say that line, but if somebody just came and told me, well, what he said right now, yeah, give me some of that what you got, bro. Give me some of that what you got. Don't hide it, divide it, but don't but hey, I do believe in spirits though. But I'm saying, like, from what he's saying, like, if you come to me telling me that you seen a white horse in a carriage, with two white horses in a carriage in the woods, just bright, and then they was just floating, and then they just disappeared. Yeah, I'm gonna think you got a few screws loose. That's just me though. Continue.
Any statement they have made. I do not believe there was any practical joke involved. That would be too dangerous in this area. Everyone out here carries weapons. Anyone foolish enough to try such a prank would likely be shot. This wasn't the first reported incident of a spirit being accompanied by a horse down Archer Avenue though. Again, as Selzer notes, in early December of the same year, workers at the drainage canal unearthed the bodies of 9 Native Americans, Scientists who examined them determined the bones were several hundred years old, and noted that one skeleton belonged to a man who stood 7 feet tall. The New York Times reported that this wasn't the first occurrence of skeletons being found in the area. 9 years earlier, other skeletons had been discovered in the same area and reburied after residents around Sag Bridge complained that the ghosts of Native Americans were riding around on horseback, demanding that their bones be reinterred. Years later, in the early 1930s, there started to become reports of a strange woman dressed in a white ball gown with blonde hair, who would appear as people drove down Archer Avenue late at night, jumping on the running boards that ran alongside the old-fashioned cars and effectively hitching a ride for a few moments, terrifying the drivers as she appeared and disappeared, seemingly out of nowhere. The stories began to spread, and at some time in the early 1930s, we got the first part of a recurring theme in the Merry folklore. As reported in a later issue of California Folklore Quarterly, a woman claimed she had already heard the strange stories about the woman coming from that area when she was driving along and saw someone trying to hitchhike who matched a similar description. The woman did pull over to offer assistance to the lone girl. The girl climbed into the car and asked to be taken to a specific address. But before they got too far, the driver and other passengers turned to discover that the hitchhiker they had just picked up was gone. Much like Jerry Paulus years later, the confused group decided to visit the address she had given. Sure enough, when they got
See, it is a such thing as shapeshifters, y'all. I ain't gonna keep on stopping it, but for YouTube purposes, every once in a while I gotta stop it. Now I can't just let it all play all the way through because YouTube give me a strike and say I'm trying to jack people's stuff. But anyways, this woman, man, is terrifying these people, and I don't know if I just want to know, is it true? Because it kind of, a lot of these stories might be folklores and don't be true. That's why I want to hear from real people from Chi-Town. You know what I'm saying? They're like, is this really going on, or just some folklore people trying to get famous about for it?
there, they discovered a woman matching that description had lived there, but that she was dead. No specific mention of this woman's appearance appears to have been made in the report, though. The appearance of this woman in white started to be reported closer and closer to the Old Henry Ballroom, which would later be renamed the Willowbrook Ballroom. It started with people seeing her close by, but then others began telling stories of seeing the strange lone woman in white inside the ballroom, including one doorman who would claim to never see her arrive or leave. She would just show up inside somehow. In 1935, a 24-year-old man named William was questioned by police after overturning his car right by the O. Henry Ballroom. The reason he gave for the accident was unusual, to say the least. He claims that he was driving past when he saw a woman standing at the side of the road, attempting to hitchhike. It was only when he got closer that William realised something was wrong. In his words, he said she leered from sightless eyes and jerked a bony thumb. Her appearance scared him so badly that he swerved the car, crashing into a post and flipping his vehicle over. No one else on the street that day saw any woman. In the late 1940s, one caretaker at Resurrection Cemetery started claiming he had seen a ghost while doing his nightly rounds. He described her as a beautiful girl roaming around the cemetery. Then in the 1950s, an incident very similar to Jerry's happened, when a young man met a girl at the Willowbrook Ballroom and offered to take her home. Once again, she asked to be taken up Archer Avenue. Apparently, as they passed the gates of the cemetery, the woman began screaming loudly. The young man panicked, unsure what was wrong. But when he turned to speak to her, she was gone. Over the decades, this has become something of a recurring theme for...
So it seems like Mary be pulling stunts. Mary, she reveals herself to the people she want to reveal herself to. But as soon as you think you got a friend, she disappears like a snowflake. Like literally, you probably went out with married and chilled and kick it. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, I think she cool, and right before your eyes, man, that'll blow my mind, man. That'll blow.
Witnesses of Mary. They would pick up a girl out hitchhiking alone at night. As they travelled down Archer Avenue with her, she would either jump out of the car and run off into the cemetery, or just totally vanish from the passenger seat. Another witness seemingly witnessed Mary out on a night on the town, when Bob Main was sat in a nightclub not too far from Resurrection Cemetery in 1973, when a young woman walked in, blonde curly hair down to her shoulders, white pale skin, and a yellowing gown that Bob described as like a wedding dress that had been left in the sun for too long. Several of the regulars made note of her. She showed up on more than one occasion. Each time she did, she refused to talk to anyone, instead spending the entire evening either just watching the other dancers or pirouetting around the dance floor alone. The people that did try and engage with her said it was as if she looked right through them, almost as though she didn't recognise they were even there. Chet's Melody Lounge is a bar right by Resurrection Cemetery, and has opened its doors to sightseers with an interest in the paranormal.
Now, as far as I know, I don't think Mary hurt anybody. As far as I know, I think she just be spooking the shit out of people. Excuse me, no YouTuber. I ain't trying to. My bad. But anyways, I just think she be spooking people, man. So I don't think she's just harmful to say. I think she just be spooking people.
Throughout the decades, they have been very open about not just talking about their own experiences of seeing Mary, but of the confused people who wander in through their doors, unsure of what they just witnessed, and needing a stiff drink. In fact, they would often leave a Bloody Mary at the end of the bar for her, a tradition that started back in the 70s, when a confused taxi driver came running in one night, saying that a blonde woman in a white dress had just jumped out of his cab and run into the bar. The owner was there alone that night. He simply sat the taxi driver down and told him that he had just met Resurrection Mary. Stories throughout the 70s seemed to grow stranger still, with many reporting seeing a blonde woman in a gown dancing down the street alone, or jumping into passersby cars when they would stop at traffic lights, before rambling gibberish at them and running away. 1976 would see the most well-known incident take place, outside of Jerry's encounter back in the 30s, and that would be of the melted bars. Patrolman Pat Homer was working the area back in August of that year, when he received a phone call telling him he needed to head to Resurrection Cemetery. They had been getting reports that the cemetery had been locked up for the night, with a blonde woman in a white dress still trapped inside. When he arrived, he could find no trace of the woman, but when he went to the fence where she had been reported as being seen, the metal bars on the fence had been bent apart, with black scorch marks on either side. Some report that you could clearly see handprints burned into the metal.
Wait a minute. Those things could have been made by anything. I tell you, sometimes you gotta decipher what's real and what's fake. Now, I'm not saying it's fake, but I don't just take people's words as fake. Well, I don't take people's words as a straight up value. I just don't do that.
That appeared to either belong to a child or a small woman. The bent fence railing stayed like that for years, and became something of a photo opportunity for the growing number of Mary enthusiasts. Later in the 70s, reports started to come in about hit and runs. People were claiming to see a woman in a white dress who looked like she had been hit by a car, only for her to be gone when the police arrived, while another claimed that a woman had run. At the first opportunity, Mark spun the car around to head back to get another look, despite his girlfriend pleading with him not to. As he did, another car that had been driving behind them did the same. Mark locked eyes with the driver, and without words they both knew that they were not alone in seeing what they had just seen. The two cars went back to the spot. Only moments had passed, but the woman was nowhere to be seen. Mark's girlfriend was so shaken by the events that she slept in her mother's bed for weeks after the fact. Sightings of Mary continued to be reported throughout the 80s, either close to Resurrection Cemetery or by the ballroom. In 1989 we get the account with one another, although more often, but there were two big issues with this. Early accounts of a phantom hitchhiker were already circulating by the time of her death, and seemingly an even bigger issue was that this Mary was a brunette. There is also the tragic story of Mary Bojax to consider, who was on her way to a funeral at Resurrection Cemetery. The mourners were travelling in two cars, but only one made it to the funeral. The second car that contained Mary Bojack was hit by a train, killing 11 of the 12 passengers inside. But despite a tragic story that feels ripe for a haunting, this Mary was also apparently a brunette. There are dozens of potential female bodies lying in Resurrection Cemetery that people believe could fit the Resurrection Mary story, including more than a few who were killed in the Eastland disaster. For those who aren't familiar, in 1915 a passenger ship that was docked in the Chicago River rolled onto its side. The ship had ironically been forced to refit all its lifeboats in the wake of the Titanic disaster just a few years earlier. There had been concerns that this would cause the SS Eastland to become too top-heavy, but this concern was seemingly ignored. On the morning of July 24th, the ship was filled to capacity with over 2,000 people on board when it suddenly began to move to one side. Attempts were quickly made to steady the ship, but it was to no avail. The ship toppled over, killing over 800 people who either drowned or were crushed by falling furniture. The ship was only 20 feet from the wharf when it happened. Mary, being a popular name at the time, meant there were around 50 women with that name in the disaster, and 5 of them fit the right age and were in fact buried in Resurrection Cemetery. The cemetery gates are locked at night, and the placement of Mary Bregovi's grave is kept a secret to stop more would-be ghost hunters from flooding to the cemetery late at night. But that doesn't stop many, often after a late night of dancing, going out to try and meet Mary for themselves. The search for...
I appreciate y'all for rocking with me, man. That's it for right now. We about 30 minutes in. I appreciate y'all. I appreciate y'all. If you haven't liked, if y'all haven't subscribed, make sure y'all like. Send me a comment, man. Let me know what type of videos that y'all like. Let me know what type of content creators that y'all like. Shoot them to me. Maybe I follow them, and if I don't, I'd like to get on them. Put me on something. But other than that, man, let me know what type of videos y'all want me to react to, man. I'm here for y'all. Whatever is clever. Just don't be no devil. But until then, man, I love y'all. Keep it ghost.